Hello. Quick little relatively simple circuit today. An automatic LED flasher that comes on when it's dark and goes off during the daytime. That's the circuit I've come up with. It's not completely original, it's derived from something I saw decades ago, around 1970, and someone showed me the insides of one of the roadworks marker lights, the type of thing that sit on top of road cones along lane closures and whatever to make it visible at night. And in turn, I think that was based on an even older circuit, which I've seen also. This was published in a magazine about the same time. This is the absolute minimum cut down one, which is not good. Basically, it's 2 transistors, a capacitor and a resistor. Sorry for the shadow. This is, well, as I put in the text, this has problems because it's basically shorting the transistor base through that and across the supply, and also the capacitor charging current is being shorted through that transistor base when the circuit fires. So if you're on a battery that's got a high resistance source and can't supply much current, it can work, but if you actually simulate it on a low resistance source, the base currents are in the tens of amp region, which is a bit excessive. This is the functional one for LED flashing rather than tone, and as you can see, it's got a lot more resistors in it, though it's still not complex. The actual oscillator part has 5 resistors, and then the LDR controls the day-night switching. And the oscillation it's actually also very, very closely related to a common type of Schmitt trigger circuit, but with a capacitor for feedback rather than a resistor. The oscillation is partly controlled by the LDR sensing the light when it turns on and turning this transistor off again after the capacitor charge and discharge cycle, if you like. So now that's a couple of built-in variable board. You see it's not all that complicated. I've got 3 LEDs on this, and I've also, just messing about, I've put 2 LDRs on facing different directions. Obviously at the moment I've got the lights on, so I have to pause and turn the lights off so you can see what happens in the dark. Now these are very bright LEDs. You can see now the lights out. The LDRs are high resistance when it's dark. So after the capacitor charges, the circuit triggers, both transistors turn on, the LEDs turn on, and then the light from one of the LEDs bouncing back into the LDR turns it off again, as well as the capacitor cycle time. The 2 flash times are very different, even though they've got nominally the same components, but the LDRs are out of a cheap bulk bag, and they might be completely different types and grades, just mixed. I think you see the effect of that. Standby current, which is of course very important if you've got something that's going to be running for a long time. Now the original one, roadworks lights, used to run on these big lantern batteries, 6-volt things, which are massive capacity. I don't know exactly what, but obviously far more than 4 AA cells. But I measured the standby current on each of these in daylight, and it's about 25 microamps, 26 microamps on each. Now these alkaline batteries are typically around 2.5 amp hour, so at 25 microamps that puts the standby life with no light, or no LEDs illuminated, at something over 10 years. So I don't think it's too bad. And obviously the actual operating life will very much depend on how how much current you put through the LEDs, how many LEDs you attach, because I've done 3 as I've done the circuit, but you could have more or less. You could have a single one, or you could extend it out and have half a dozen or a dozen on it or whatever, as long as you use a suitable transistor and you have enough base current to that transistor for whatever gain it is to drive it. In these boards I've got a BC550C for the NPN one, which is a very high gain one. The gain's somewhere over 500 to 800 I think, and a ZTX 951 for the PNP one at the top, as that's a kind of miniature power transistor, not massively high gain. In fact, these are kind of leftovers from audio projects I've selected, and these are the lowest gain versions. So I've actually got a I forgot what resistor I've used in there now. A 220 ohm drive resistor rather than the 470 we've got on the circuit there. I'll put a bit more current through it, and I've got 100 ohm resistors limiting the current. So the pulse current's about 30 milliamps probably on these white LEDs. Now, as you can see, they're quite bright. In fact, they're painfully bright if you look at things too closely in the dark. So you could probably use just one LED and lower current if you use a very high efficiency LED to keep the battery life quite decent. As I say, the only thing it does need somehow, somewhere, whether it's direct or reflected, it needs the light from the LED to come back to an LDR, as that is part of the circuit operation. It's turned on by light. It turns on after a delay and turns off by light, rather than being a pure oscillator in its own right. The optical feedback is essential. Anyway, you can see it's quite a simple board. I will link the formal circuits of this PDFs in the description of the article, and I hope it's of some interest. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you like this type of material.